The lid of the crate ripped open. Blinding light flooded in. Belinda squinted against it, her eyes burning after hours of suffocating darkness. And when her vision finally cleared, she found herself staring up at the most beautiful and terrifying man she had ever seen. He was tall, not just tall, towering. At least 6'5", built like God had taken extra time sculpting him. Deep brown skin smooth like polished mahogany. His locks were styled immaculately, sides shaved clean, the rest pulled back into a ponytail that hung between his shoulder blades. But it was his eyes that made Belinda forget how to breathe. Gray. Pure silver gray. Like storm clouds. Like steel. Like danger. And right now, those eyes were staring down at her with absolutely zero warmth. "What?" he said slowly, his voice deep enough to vibrate through her bones. "Is this?" Belinda's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. She probably looked insane. A black woman in a full wedding gown, ivory silk, beaded bodice, massive tulle skirt, crammed inside a shipping crate like cargo. Her long zigzag cornrows, usually neat with gold beads at the ends, were now tangled and wild. Not exactly her best moment. "I can explain. Desmond." He didn't raise his voice, but it carried like thunder. "Get this crazy woman out of my house, now." A man in a crisp suit appeared instantly. "Yes, Mr. Kingston." Hands reached for Belinda. Panic exploded in her chest. "No!" Before she knew what she was doing, Belinda lunged forward and grabbed Gray's legs, wrapping her arms around his knees like her life depended on it. Because maybe it did. "Please." Tears streamed down her face. "Please, you can't send me back there. I'll do anything. I'll clean your floors, I'll scrub your toilets, I'll be your servant. Just please don't make me go back. Please." Gray glared down at her, his jaw tight with disgust. "You think I'm stupid? You're just another desperate woman who wants a bite of the Kingston fortune, huh? Your style is creative, I give you that, but I'm also giving you the grace to leave before I have you arrested for stalking. And trust me, I can make sure you spend a very, very long time in jail for this." He tried to step back. She held tighter. He tried to shake her off. She clung like her life depended on it. His gray eyes turned to ice. And when he spoke again, it was the coldest thing Belinda had ever heard in her entire life. "Now, let me pause right here. I know what you're thinking. How did a girl like Belinda end up in a shipping crate, wearing a wedding dress, clutching a billionaire's knees in his own mansion? Trust me, this story is wilder than you can imagine. Hit that subscribe button and smash the like, because what I'm about to tell you will have you on the edge of your seat. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Hours earlier. A few hours ago, Belinda stood in front of her cracked bedroom mirror, staring at her reflection like it belonged to a stranger. The wedding dress was beautiful. Massive tulle skirt that made her feel like a princess. A princess on her way to the executioner's block. "Belinda, stop dawdling." Her mother's voice screeched from downstairs. "The car will be here in 20 minutes. Belinda didn't respond. She just kept staring at her reflection, trying to find herself somewhere beneath the layers of fabric and expectation. Her cornrows were perfect. She had spent hours yesterday getting them done. Long zigzag parts that swept back from her forehead, the ends decorated with tiny gold beads that clinked softly when she moved. It was supposed to be her crowning glory on her wedding day. Instead, it felt like a funeral shroud. "Belinda?" "I'm coming, Mama." She gathered her massive skirt and walked downstairs, each step feeling like she was descending into her own grave. Her mother, Vivian Dawn, waited at the bottom of the staircase. She was a handsome woman in her late 40s, light-skinned, sharp-featured, dressed in an expensive lavender suit that Cornelius had paid for. Everything was paid for by Cornelius, the house they lived in. The food they ate, the clothes on their backs. Every bit of comfort in Belinda's life had come from a man she had only met 3 times before today. 3 times. And in a few hours, she would be his wife. "You look beautiful," Vivian said, but there was no warmth in her voice. Just satisfaction. the satisfaction of a woman whose investment was finally paying off. "I don't want to do this," Belinda whispered. "What?" "I said I don't want to do this." Louder now. "I don't want to marry him." Vivian's expression hardened. "We've discussed this." "No, Mama, you discussed this. You decided this. I didn't tell you to rely on a predator like him to provide for us. I thought you had legit work. I never agreed to any of it. You agreed when you ate his food. You agreed when you wore his clothes. You agreed when you lived in his house for 18 years. Vivian stepped closer, her eyes cold. "Cornelius has been very patient, very generous. Most men would have demanded repayment long ago." "Repayment?" Belinda felt sick. "Is that what I am? A debt payment?" "You're an investment." Vivian smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "One that's finally maturing." The church was small but elegant. Another Cornelius purchase. Belinda sat in the bridal room, surrounded by flowers and candles and all the trappings of a celebration. Through the door, she could hear guests arriving. Music playing, laughter that seemed to mock her misery. "5 minutes, dear." The wedding coordinator poked her head in. "Your groom is waiting." My groom. Belinda's stomach churned. She couldn't do this. She couldn't marry a man who looked at her like she was a prized horse he'd won at auction. She couldn't spend the rest of her life pretending to love someone who made her skin crawl. But what choice did she have? She had no money, no job, no family who cared about her well-being. Running away was a fantasy for people who had options. Belinda had none. The coordinator returned. "It's time." Belinda stood on shaking legs. She gathered her massive skirt and walked toward the door. The music changed. The traditional wedding march began. The doors to the sanctuary opened. And Belinda got her first real look at Cornelius Webb. He stood at the altar in a black tuxedo that did nothing to hide his age. 63 years old. Thinning gray hair. A smile that revealed yellowing teeth. And eyes, hungry eyes, that roamed over her body like she was a meal he couldn't wait to devour. Belinda's feet stopped moving. The music continued. The guests turned to look at her. Her mother, seated in the front row, gestured impatiently. But Belinda couldn't move. Cornelius's smile widened. He winked at her. Something inside Belinda snapped. She turned. And she ran. She ran until her lungs burned. Ran until her legs screamed. Ran until she reached the harbor, the docks she had grown up beside, the ships she had watched come and go, dreaming of escape. And there it was. A cargo ship being loaded with crates, workers shouting instructions, a gangplank leading to freedom. Belinda didn't think. She just acted. She found an open crate waiting to be loaded. She hiked up her massive skirt, climbed inside, and pulled the lid closed just as footsteps approached. The crate was lifted, moved, loaded onto the ship. The wooden walls pressed against Belinda's shoulders from every direction. Her lungs burned, her legs cramped. The massive skirt of her wedding gown was bunched up around her waist, and the corset dug into her ribs so hard she could barely breathe. But she didn't care. Anything was better than marrying that man. The image of him flashed through her mind. Cornelius Webb, 63 years old. Gray hair slicked back with too much gel. Yellow teeth. Wrinkled hands that had reached for her face like she was a piece of property he had already purchased. Because in his mind, he had. Belinda's mother had made sure of that. The box lurched suddenly. Belinda bit down on her fist to keep from crying out. She could hear voices outside, dock workers shouting instructions, machinery humming, seagulls screaming overhead. The boat was moving. Good. The further from that church, the better. Hours passed. Or maybe it was minutes. Time meant nothing in the darkness of that crate. All Belinda knew was that she was finally free. Free from her mother's schemes. Free from Cornelius Webb's disgusting hands. Free from a future that looked more like a prison sentence than a life. The rocking of the boat eventually lulled her into an exhausted sleep. When she woke up, everything had changed. The box wasn't moving anymore. Belinda's eyes snapped open. She could hear voices again, but these were different. Closer, more refined. Yo, where does this one go? Main hall. Mr. Kingston wants everything sorted before he gets back. Kingston? Who was Kingston? Before Belinda could process the question, the crate jerked violently. She was being lifted, carried, then dropped onto what felt like a marble floor with a thud that rattled her teeth. Footsteps faded away. Silence. Belinda's heart pounded against her ribs. She needed to get out of this box. She needed to figure out where she was. She needed... Her leg cramped, badly. She shifted without thinking. The box moved. Did that crate just move? Belinda's blood turned to ice. Man, you're seeing things. Help me with these other boxes. Nah, I'm serious. It moved again. Look. Footsteps. What's going on here? A low, velvety voice asked. Mr. Kingston, welcome home. I swear that box just moved. What? Footsteps, coming closer. Belinda held her breath. Sir, I don't think it's wise to open it. Could be a wild animal or... The lid of the crate ripped open. Blinding light flooded in. Belinda squinted against it, her eyes burning after hours in darkness. And when her vision finally cleared, she found herself staring up at the most beautiful man she had ever seen in her entire life. He was tall. Not just tall, towering. He had to be at least 6'5", built like God had taken extra time sculpting him. His skin was deep brown, smooth like polished mahogany. His hair was styled in neat locks, the sides shaved clean, the rest pulled back into a ponytail that hung between his shoulder blades. But it was his eyes that made Belinda forget how to breathe. Gray. His eyes were gray. Not blue-gray or green-gray. Pure silver gray. Like storm clouds or morning mist or something equally poetic that Belinda's oxygen-deprived brain couldn't quite articulate. Those gray eyes stared down at her with absolutely zero warmth. What? He said slowly, his voice deep enough to vibrate through her bones. Is this? Belinda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She probably looked insane. A black woman in a full wedding gown, ivory silk, beaded bodice, massive tulle skirt, crammed inside a shipping crate like a mail-order bride from the 1800s. Her long zigzag cornrows, usually neat and decorated with gold beads at the ends, were now tangled and frizzy from hours of being compressed. Not exactly her best look. I can explain, she managed. I sincerely doubt that. The man's jaw tightened. Who sent you? Nobody sent me. I sent myself. You sent yourself. In a wedding dress, inside a shipping crate, to my private residence. I didn't know it was going to your residence. I was just trying to escape. Escape. He said the word like it was in a foreign language. Yes, escape. Belinda struggled to sit up, fighting against the massive skirt that seemed determined to swallow her whole. I was supposed to get married today, but I couldn't go through with it. The man was... He was... She shuddered. He was old enough to be my grandfather. My mother basically sold me to him. So I ran. I saw the crates being loaded onto the boat and I jumped in one. I didn't know where it was going. I just knew it was going away. The man stared at her. Belinda stared back. The silence stretched like taffy. That, he finally said, is the most ridiculous story I have ever heard. It's the truth. Even if it were true, which I seriously doubt, that doesn't explain why you're in my house. I told you I didn't know. Desmond. The man didn't raise his voice, but somehow it carried through the entire room. A well-dressed man in a crisp suit appeared immediately. Yes, Mr. Kingston? Get this crazy woman out of my home, now. Wait. Belinda scrambled out of the crate, nearly tripping over her ridiculous dress. Please, you can't send me back there. I can do whatever I want. It's my house. But if I go back, they'll find me. They'll make me marry him. Panic clawed at her chest. Please, I'll do anything. I'll work for you. I'll clean your house. I'll scrub your toilets. I'll be your servant. Just please don't send me back. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Annoyance? Curiosity? Belinda couldn't tell. You think I'm stupid? You're just another desperate woman who wants a bite of the Kingston fortune, huh? Your style is creative, I give you that. But I'm also giving you the grace to leave before I have you arrested for stalking. And trust me, I can make sure you spend a very, very long time in jail for this. Besides, I don't need a servant, especially one who gives off a just escaped from mental hospital vibes. Everyone needs a servant. Look at this place. Belinda interjected, consciously ignoring the earlier part of his words. She gestured wildly at the massive marble foyer, the crystal chandeliers, the sweeping staircase that looked like it belonged in a palace. This is way too much house for one person to clean. I have a cleaning staff. Then I'll help them. I'll do whatever they don't want to do. The gross stuff, the hard stuff. Just please. Gray, darling, what's all this commotion? The voice came from behind them. Soft, elderly, warm. Belinda turned to see a small woman in a wheelchair being pushed by a nurse. She was ancient, easily in her 80s, with silver hair pinned in an elegant bun and eyes that sparkled with sharp intelligence despite her frail body. Gray, so that was his name, immediately softened. The cold mask slipped just enough for Belinda to glimpse something human underneath. It's nothing, Grandma. Just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding in a wedding dress? The old woman's eyes traveled to Belinda, taking in the disheveled gown, the tangled cornrows. The desperate expression. My, that's quite a story, I imagine. She claims she was running from a forced marriage, Gray said flatly. She snuck into one of my shipping crates by accident. By accident, Belinda emphasized. I wasn't trying to… I didn't know. Hush, child. The old woman raised a thin hand. Come here, let me look at you. Belinda hesitated, then approached the wheelchair slowly. The old woman studied her face with an intensity that made Belinda want to squirm. Those sharp eyes seemed to see everything, every fear, every hope, every secret. What's your name? The old woman asked. Belinda Dawn. And this marriage you were running from, the man was cruel to you? He was… Belinda struggled to find the right words. He was old, older than my mother. He looked at me like I was something to own. And my mama, she promised him he could have me. Years ago. She's been living off his money ever since without my knowledge, and I was supposed to be the payment. The old woman's expression hardened. Your own mother did this? Yes, ma'am. Silence fell over the foyer. The old woman turned to Gray. She stays. Gray's jaw dropped, slightly, almost imperceptibly, but Belinda caught it. Grandma? She stays, Gray, at least until we sort out this mess. The old woman's voice was gentle but firm. Look at her. She's terrified. She's exhausted. And she's wearing a wedding dress that probably weighs more than she does. The least we can do is give her a meal and a place to sleep. This isn't a charity house. No, it's our house. And in our house, we help people in need. Gray looked like he wanted to argue. His jaw worked. His gray eyes flashed. But in the end, he just exhaled through his nose. Fine, one night. 1 week, the old woman countered. Grandma, she could be lying. 1 week, Gray. That's my final offer. Another long pause. Then, fine. 1 week. But she's not my responsibility. He turned and walked away without another word, his long legs eating up the distance to the staircase. Belinda watched him go, her heart still racing. The old woman chuckled softly. Don't mind him. His bark is worse than his bite. She extended a frail hand. I'm Odessa Kingston, but you can call me Grandma. Everyone does. Belinda shook her hand gently. Thank you, ma'am, Grandma. I don't know how to repay you. Keep me company, child. That's payment enough. Odessa smiled, and for the first time since Belinda had climbed into that crate, she felt like maybe, just maybe, everything might be okay. True to his word, Gray Kingston wanted nothing to do with Belinda. He didn't speak to her, didn't acknowledge her presence. walked past her in the hallways like she was a piece of furniture that had been placed in an inconvenient location. It should have bothered her. It didn't, because Belinda was too busy being amazed by everything else. The Kingston Mansion, because there was no other word for it, was the most spectacular building she had ever seen. It sat on a private estate overlooking the Chesapeake Bay, all white columns and floor-to-ceiling windows and manicured gardens that probably had their own team of gardeners. Scratch that. They definitely had their own team. Belinda had met 4 of them on her second day. Her room, because Gray had reluctantly provided her with one, was bigger than her mother's entire house. King-sized bed with sheets that felt like sleeping on clouds. Private bathroom with a tub the size of a small swimming pool. A closet that echoed when she walked into it because there was nothing in it but the wedding dress she refused to touch. This is temporary, she reminded herself every morning. 1 week. Then I figure out what comes next. But figuring out what came next was harder than she expected. She had no money, no ID. She had left everything at her mother's house. No phone, no contacts, no plan. What she did have was Grandma Odessa. Tell me about yourself, child. Belinda looked up from the checkerboard. She and Grandma had fallen into a routine over the past 3 days. Tea in the morning. Checkers in the afternoon, stories in the evening. There's not much to tell, Belinda said. I'm 24, never finished college, couldn't afford it. Been working odd jobs since I was 16. And apparently, I'm excellent at hiding in shipping crates. Grandma laughed, a warm, wheezing sound that made Belinda smile. You have spirit. I like that. She moved a checker piece. What about your father? Belinda's smile faded. Never knew him. He left before I was born. Mama said he was no good, but... She shrugged. Hard to say if that's true or if she just wanted me to hate him. Your mother sounds like a complicated woman. That's a polite way to put it. Grandma studied her for a moment. You know, you remind me of someone. Who? Me, when I was your age. Grandma's eyes grew distant. I was engaged once. To a man I didn't love. My parents arranged it. Back then, that's just how things were done, especially if your family needed money. What happened? I ran away, just like you. A small smile played on her lips. I met my husband, Earl, 3 days later. He was working at a diner in Virginia. I walked in looking for a job. He took one look at me and said, I'm going to marry you someday. She laughed. I thought he was absolutely insane. Was he? Oh, completely. But he was also right. We were married for 53 years before he passed. Belinda's chest tightened. That's beautiful. It was terrifying at first. Loving someone always is. But it was also the best decision I ever made. Grandma reached across the checkerboard and patted Belinda's hand. Don't give up on love just because your mother tried to corrupt it, child. The right person is out there. Sometimes they show up in the most unexpected places. Just 2 days in, Belinda discovered something about Gray. The guy used and discarded women like wads of used tissue. The first night, Belinda told herself it was none of her business. She was walking back to her room after helping Grandma to bed when she heard it. Laughter. Female laughter. Floating down from Gray's wing of the mansion like expensive perfume, in sex the laughter changed. A grunt, a hiss, a female gasp. Slow down, Gray, you beast. But the lady didn't sound offended at all. In fact, she sounded incredibly happy. Belinda kept walking. Not her business, not her concern. She was a guest here, barely tolerated, probably temporary. What Gray Kingston did in his private time had nothing to do with her. But the next morning, she couldn't help noticing the woman slipping out the front door. Tall, stunning. Wearing last night's dress with the confidence of someone who had done this walk of shame many times before. She had red marks all over her neck area and arms. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked satisfied. Gray stood in the foyer, fully dressed in a tailored suit, scrolling through his phone like he was waiting for an Uber instead of seeing off a lover. I'll call you, he said without looking up. The woman laughed, a knowing, cynical sound. No, you won't. You're right, I won't. She didn't seem offended, just amused. She blew him a kiss and sauntered out the door. Gray finally looked up from his phone. His gray eyes found Belinda immediately, standing frozen on the staircase like a deer caught in headlights. One dark eyebrow rose. Belinda's face burned. She turned and fled back to her room. The second night, Belinda tried harder to mind her business. She stayed in her room after dinner, reading a book she'd borrowed from Grandma's collection. She put in earbuds and played music to drown out any sounds that might drift down the hallway. It didn't help. Around midnight, she got up to get water from the kitchen. She took the long way, the route that didn't pass Gray's wing. She still ran into the woman. This one was different from the first. Shorter, curvier, wearing a dress so tight it looked painted on. She was wandering the halls, clearly lost. "Bathroom?" she asked Belinda hopefully. Belinda pointed. "Down the hall, second door on the left." "Thanks, girl." The woman tottered off on impossibly high heels. Belinda stood in the dark hallway, jaw tight, and reminded herself, again, that this was none of her business. The third night, Belinda discovered she had limits. She was in the kitchen, helping the cook prepare breakfast for the next morning, when she heard the front door slam. Not close. Slam. Voices followed. Gray's, low and dismissive, and a woman's, high and desperate. "You can't just throw me out. It's 2 a.m. Watch me." Belinda moved toward the foyer before she could stop herself. What she saw made her blood boil. A woman stood on the front steps, shivering in the night air. She was wearing nothing but a silk slip, the kind of thing you wore under a dress, not as a dress. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her mascara running, her hair wild. Gray stood in the doorway, fully clothed, completely unmoved. "I promise I won't go through your phone again." "Come on, my clothes are still in your room," the woman protested. "I'll have them sent." "It's freezing out here. Then I suggest you walk quickly." He started to close the door. The woman's face crumbled. For all her bravado, she was humiliated, discarded, thrown away like trash. Something in Belinda snapped. "Wait." Both Gray and the woman turned to look at her. Belinda pushed past Gray, ignoring his look of surprise, and grabbed a coat from the rack by the door. One of Grandma's old ones, soft and warm. "Here." She draped it around the shivering woman's shoulders. "There's a car service the staff uses. I'll call one for you." The woman stared at her with wide, grateful eyes. Thank you so much." "It's nothing." Belinda shot a glare at Gray. "Common decency. Some people seem to have forgotten what that looks like." Gray's jaw tightened. 20 minutes later, the woman was safely in a car, wearing the borrowed coat, clutching a cup of hot tea Belinda had pressed into her hands. Belinda watched the taillights disappear down the driveway. Then she turned around. Gray was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "Are you done playing savior?" he asked. "Are you done being a monster?" He pushed off the doorframe and walked toward her. Slowly, deliberately, each step calculated to intimidate. Belinda held her ground. "Let me make something very clear," Gray said, stopping just inches from her. His voice was low, dangerous, almost a purr. "What I do in my house, with whom and how often, is none of your concern. You threw her out half naked in the middle of the night. She knew what she was signing up for. Did she? Did she know she'd be discarded like garbage the second you got bored? I never promised her anything. I never promise any of them anything." His gray eyes glittered in the moonlight. "They come to me willingly, eagerly, knowing exactly what I'm offering and what I'm not. Don't mistake their disappointment for my cruelty. You're unbelievable." "So I've been told." That dangerous smile played at his lips, usually in a very different context. Belinda's face heated. She hated that her body responded to him even when her mind was screaming in disgust. Hated that his closeness made her pulse race. Hated that she could smell his cologne, woodsy and expensive, and that some traitorous part of her brain found it intoxicating. Gray noticed. Of course he noticed. His smile widened. He leaned closer, close enough that his breath ghosted across her ear. You know what I think, Belinda Dawn? She should step back. Should put distance between them. I think you're jealous. The words hit like cold water. What? You heard me. Gray pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. His gaze was knowing, mocking, absolutely insufferable. All this righteous anger, all this moral outrage, it's not about those women at all, is it? You're delusional. Am I? He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he was enjoying solving. You watch me, you know. When you think I'm not looking. Your eyes follow me across every room. You do. He stepped even closer. Now there was barely any space between them. So tell me, Miss Moral High Ground, is that why you're so upset? Because you want to be in their place? The question hung in the air like smoke. Belinda felt heat flood her entire body. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her skin tingled everywhere his proximity touched. Which was everywhere, because he was so close she could feel the warmth radiating off him. He was gorgeous. Undeniably, unfairly gorgeous. Those gray eyes, that perfect jaw, the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders, the confidence that rolled off him in waves. And he knew it. He knew exactly what effect he had on women. He was using it now, deliberately, trying to throw her off balance, trying to win. Something cold and determined settled in Belinda's chest. She tilted her head up, met his gaze directly, and smiled. You know what, Gray? You're right. Surprise flickered in his eyes. I do watch you, she continued. I watch you parade woman after woman through this house. I watch you charm them, bed them, and discard them. I watch you pretend you're having fun when anyone with eyes can see you're miserable. Gray's smile faltered. But here's the thing. Belinda stepped closer now, eliminating the last inch of space between them. She had to crane her neck to maintain eye contact. He was so much taller, but she refused to back down. I'm not jealous of those women. I pity them, because they get one night with a man so broken he can't even enjoy his own conquests. They get passion from someone who feels nothing. They get used by someone who hates himself too much to let anyone actually matter. Gray went very still. So no, Belinda said softly. I don't want to be in their place. I don't want one night with Gray Kingston, the empty playboy. But maybe... She reached up and tapped his chest, right over his heart. Maybe when you're ready to be someone real, someone whole, we can have a different conversation. She turned and walked away. Her legs were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. But she kept her head high and her steps steady. Behind her, Gray stood frozen in the doorway. No one had ever talked to him like that. No one had ever seen through him like that. And no one had ever walked away from him. The next morning, Belinda found Grandma in the sunroom, looking troubled. Everything okay? Belinda asked, settling into her usual chair. Grandma sighed heavily. I heard quite the commotion last night. Something about a coat and a car service? Belinda winced. Word travels fast. In this house, nothing stays secret for long. Grandma studied her carefully. You helped one of Gray's companions? She was freezing. He threw her out with barely any clothes. That was kind of you. Grandma's expression was complicated. Part approval, part sadness. Most people would have looked the other way. I couldn't just watch her suffer. No, you couldn't. Grandma reached over and patted Belinda's hand. That's what makes you different from the others. Belinda frowned. What do you mean? Those women Gray brings home, they're not bad people. Most of them are just lonely. Looking for connection in the wrong places. But they'd never help each other. They see each other as competition, not sisters. Grandma's eyes were knowing. You saw a woman in need and helped her. Even though she'd just been in not your man's bed. But you know what I mean. He's not my man. Mm-hmm. He's not. I heard you gave him quite the speech last night. Grandma's lips twitched. Something about being empty and broken and hating himself? Belinda groaned. Is there a single thing that happens in this house that you don't know about? Not much. Grandma was fully smiling now. For what it's worth, I think it's exactly what he needed to hear. He probably hates me now. Oh, I doubt that. Grandma's eyes sparkled with mischief. In fact, I suspect it's quite the opposite. Before Belinda could ask what that meant, the sunroom door opened. Gray walked in. He stopped when he saw Belinda, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Gray cleared his throat. Grandma, I came to take you to your doctor's appointment. Oh, is that today? Grandma made a show of checking her watch. My, where does the time go? Belinda, dear, would you help me to my wheelchair? As Belinda helped Grandma up, she felt Gray's eyes on her. Watching. Studying. When she finally glanced at him, she expected anger, expected coldness. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like curiosity, like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. After you, Gray said, holding the door open. Belinda walked past him, hyper-aware of his presence, of his warmth, of the way his gaze followed her every step. This was going to be a very long week. Y'all see that? Gray tried to get in Belinda's head and she flipped it on him. Had this man standing there speechless. If you're screaming she ate him up right now, drop A in the comments. And if you think Gray has finally met his match, hit that subscribe button because the tension between these two is about to get unbearable. Like this video if you're ready to see what happens next. After that night, something changed. Gray still didn't talk to Belinda much. Still walked past her in the hallways like she was semi-invisible. But sometimes, she would catch him watching her. She'd be laughing at something Grandma said, and she'd feel eyes on her. She'd look up, and there he'd be, standing in a doorway, pausing on the staircase, observing her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. And the parade of women? It slowed down, not stopped completely. But where there had been 3 or 4 a week, now there was maybe 1. And Gray seemed less enthusiastic about them, more distant. What did you say to my grandson? Grandma asked one morning. Nothing, just called him out on some stuff. Well, whatever you said, it seems to have rattled him. Grandma smiled slyly. He hasn't brought anyone home in 4 days. That's a record. Belinda tried not to feel pleased about that. She failed. Day 7 brought an unexpected development. Belinda was dusting the library. She had taken to helping the cleaning staff, unable to sit around doing nothing, when Gray walked in. He stopped when he saw her, looked at the duster in her hand, raised one perfect eyebrow. What are you doing? Interpretive dance. Belinda waved the duster dramatically. What does it look like I'm doing? It looks like you're doing the staff's job. I told you I'd work for my keep. I wasn't joking. Gray was quiet for a moment. Then, you don't have to do that. I want to. I don't like feeling useless. Another pause. Gray moved further into the library, browsing the shelves like he was looking for something specific. Belinda returned to dusting. The 1-week period ends tomorrow, Gray said without looking at her. Belinda's stomach dropped. I know. What's your plan? Still figuring that out? You don't have one. I'm working on it. Gray pulled a book from the shelf and turned to face her. Where will you go? I don't know. A shelter, maybe. Until I can get on my feet. A shelter. His voice was flat. You'd rather live in a shelter than go back to your mother. I'd rather live anywhere than go back to my mother. Something shifted in Gray's expression. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. She must have really done a number on you. You have no idea. Silence stretched between them. But it wasn't the cold, dismissive silence of before. This was something different. Something almost comfortable. My grandmother likes you, Gray said finally. I like her too. She's amazing. She doesn't like most people. She tolerates them. There's a difference. Belinda wasn't sure what to say to that. Gray replaced the book on the shelf. He had never actually opened it, and walked toward the door. But he paused at the threshold. You can stay, he said without turning around. Belinda's heart stuttered. What? The 1-week period. Consider it extended. For how long? Until you have a plan, a real one, not a shelter. Why? The question escaped before Belinda could stop it. You don't even like me. Gray finally turned. His gray eyes met hers, and for a moment, Belinda forgot how to breathe. I don't know you, he corrected. That's not the same thing. Then he left. Belinda stood alone in the library, duster hanging limply from her hand, her heart doing things she didn't understand and wasn't sure she wanted to examine too closely. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of tea with Grandma, checkers, stories, helping the staff even though they insisted she didn't need to. 2 weeks of applying for jobs only to get back-to-back rejections. Avoiding Gray while simultaneously being hyper-aware of his presence whenever he was nearby. 2 weeks of something slowly, carefully shifting. Belinda had started to feel almost safe. That ended on a Tuesday afternoon. She was bringing Grandma her afternoon tea when she heard it, a crash from the sunroom. Belinda ran. She found Grandma on the floor, her wheelchair toppled beside her. The old woman's face was pale, her breathing shallow. Grandma! Grandma! Belinda dropped to her knees. Grandma's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. Can't breathe. Help! Somebody help! The staff came running. Someone called 911. Someone else went to find Gray. Belinda stayed on the floor, holding Grandma's frail hand, praying to every deity she could think of. Gray burst through the door seconds later. Belinda had never seen him move so fast, his long legs eating up the distance until he was skidding to his knees beside his grandmother. Grandma, Grandma, can you hear me? Gray. Grandma's voice was barely a whisper. My boy. The ambulance is coming. Just hold on. Please hold on. Tears streamed down Gray's face. Belinda had never seen him cry before, had never imagined he could. But here he was, this giant of a man weeping like a child as he cradled his grandmother's hand. Don't leave me, he whispered. Please don't leave me. You're all I have. Her heart broke for him. The ambulance arrived in 8 minutes. It felt like 8 hours. Belinda rode with Gray to the hospital, neither of them speaking. There was nothing to say. Just fear and hope and prayer tangled together in a knot that couldn't be undone. The doctors took Grandma into surgery immediately. Something about her heart. A valve problem that had been getting worse for years. Gray sat in the waiting room like a statue. Frozen. Expressionless. But Belinda could see his hands shaking. She sat down beside him. For a long moment, they were silent. Then, carefully, Belinda reached over and took his hand. Gray stiffened. She felt him start to pull away. But he didn't. Instead, slowly, his fingers curled around hers, holding on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. They sat like that for hours. Neither of them said a word. Neither of them needed to. Gray finally let his walls down, and Belinda was right there to hold him up. If this moment hit you in the heart, type "praying for Grandma" in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed because everything is about to change. A confrontation with Belinda's mom, Gray's ultimate sacrifice, and a love story that will make your heart explode. Don't miss it. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Belinda had lost track of how long they'd been sitting there. 2 hours? 3? The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly pale glow that made Gray's brown skin look almost gray. His hand was still wrapped around hers. Neither of them had acknowledged it. Neither of them had let go. Every time a doctor walked past, Gray's grip tightened. Every time a nurse called out a name that wasn't Kingston, his shoulders slumped just a little more. Belinda had never seen him like this. The cold, untouchable billionaire who walked through life like nothing could hurt him. reduced to a man terrified of losing the only person who truly mattered to him. "She's going to be okay," Belinda said quietly. Gray didn't respond. "She's a fighter. You know she is. That woman survived raising you. She can survive anything." A ghost of a smile flickered across Gray's face. Just for a second. Then it was gone. "She's all I have," he said, his voice rough. "My parents died when I was 7. Car accident. Grandma took me in, raised me, sacrificed everything so I could have a future." His jaw tightened. "And I repay her by building an empire? By giving her a beautiful home? By being there the second she needed you? By wasting my life on women who don't matter? By refusing to give her the one thing she actually wants?" Belinda hesitated. "What does she want?" Gray was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Great-grandchildren, a real family, someone to carry on after she's gone." He laughed bitterly. "She's been asking me for years, and I couldn't. After what happened with Jasmine and Naomi, I couldn't let anyone get that close again." Belinda didn't know what to say. She couldn't relate. She thought about her own mother, Vivian, who had never wanted her, who had treated her like a burden to be sold off at the first opportunity. And then there was Grandma Odessa, a woman who loved her grandson so fiercely that her dying wish was to see him happy. "It's not too late," Belinda said softly. "She's going to pull through. And when she does, you can give her everything she's asked for." Gray's gray eyes met hers. In that moment, all his walls were down, all his armor stripped away. He was just a man, a scared, lonely man who had forgotten how to let people in. "How do you do that?" he asked. "Do what?" "Stay hopeful. After everything you've been through. Your mother. That man she tried to sell you to. Running away with nothing but a wedding dress. How are you still light?" Belinda considered the question. "Because the alternative is darkness, and I spent too many years in the dark already." She squeezed his hand. "Besides, someone very wise once told me that running away was the best decision she ever made. That it led her to the love of her life." Gray's eyes widened slightly. "My grandmother told you her story?" "On our second day of checkers. She said she was engaged to someone she didn't love, just like me. She ran away, just like me. And she met your grandfather 3 days later." Something shifted in Gray's expression. Belinda couldn't quite name it, but it made her heart beat a little faster. Before either of them could speak, a doctor appeared in the doorway. "Family of Odessa Kingston?" Gray shot to his feet. "That's me. I'm her grandson." The doctor's face was unreadable. "The surgery was successful. We were able to repair the valve. She's stable." The breath Gray released could have filled a hot air balloon. "She's going to need several weeks of recovery," the doctor continued. "But if all goes well, she should be able to return home within a month or 2. Gray's knees buckled. Belinda grabbed his arm to steady him. "Thank you," he managed. "Thank you." The doctor nodded and walked away. And then Gray Kingston, billionaire, playboy, ice king, turned and pulled Belinda into the tightest hug she had ever experienced in her life. Gray just hugged Belinda like his life depended on it. If you're screaming at your screen right now, type, "They're falling for each other" in the comments. Subscribe because this story is about to get even more emotional. The next 3 weeks were a blur of hospital visits, bad cafeteria coffee, and something Belinda never expected. Normalcy. Gray visited his grandmother every single day, and every single day he brought Belinda with him. At first, she tried to give them privacy, tried to wait in the hallway while he had his time with Grandma. Gray wasn't having it. "She asks for you," he said on the 3rd day, grabbing Belinda's wrist and pulling her into the room. "Every time I show up alone, she asks where you are, so stop being stubborn and get in here." Grandma's face lit up when she saw Belinda. "There she is, my favorite chess opponent." "We play checkers, Grandma." "Same thing. Come sit with me, child. Tell me everything I've missed." And so Belinda became a permanent fixture at Grandma Odessa's bedside. She brought puzzles to keep Grandma's mind sharp, snuck in homemade cookies when the nurses weren't looking, told stories about her childhood in Baltimore, the good parts, the funny parts, carefully edited to leave out the darkness. And Gray watched. He watched Belinda make his grandmother laugh until tears streamed down her face. He watched her hold Grandma's hand during painful moments. He watched her adjust pillows, fetch blankets, and argue with nurses who weren't being attentive enough. Something in him shifted. He didn't have a name for it, didn't want to examine it too closely. But it was there, growing, warming. By week 5, Belinda had taken over Gray's entire household. Not officially, of course. She had no title, no authority. But somehow she had become the person everyone looked to when decisions needed to be made. The cook consulted her on meals. The housekeeper asked her opinion on cleaning schedules. Even Desmond, Gray's personal assistant, a man who answered to no one except Gray himself, started deferring to her on minor matters. "You've staged a coup," Gray observed one evening, watching Belinda direct the kitchen staff with the authority of a general commanding troops. "I have no idea what you're talking about. You've taken over my house. I'm just helping out, while Grandma's in the hospital." "Helping out." Gray's lips twitched. "Is that what we're calling it?" Belinda turned to face him, hands on her hips. "Would you prefer I go back to hiding in my room like a proper house guest? I would prefer you admit that you've essentially become the lady of the house." "Lady of the—" Belinda sputtered. "I'm just making sure things run smoothly. Someone has to while you're spending all day at the hospital." "I spend all day at the hospital because you guilt-tripped me into it." "I did not guilt-trip you. I simply pointed out that Grandma might appreciate seeing her only grandson more than twice a week. You called me a neglectful workaholic with the emotional availability of a brick wall." "Well," Belinda sniffed, "if the brick wall fits." Gray stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. Not the short, surprised sound from before. A real laugh, full and rich and warm. Belinda's heart did something complicated in her chest. "You're impossible," Gray said. "Thank you." It wasn't a compliment. I'm taking it as one anyway. That night, Belinda noticed something. The parade of women had stopped completely. Belinda tried not to read into it, tried not to hope. She failed at both. Week 6 brought an unexpected invitation. "The Chesapeake Foundation Gala," Gray announced at breakfast. Sliding an envelope across the table, "It's tomorrow night. I need to attend." Belinda looked at the envelope, then at Gray. "Okay, have fun." "You're coming with me." "Excuse me?" "Grandma's orders." Gray sipped his coffee, completely casual. "She called this morning. Apparently she's decided I can't be trusted to attend social functions alone. Something about making poor choices when surrounded by eligible women. So she's sending me as your— what? Babysitter? Escort." The word hung in the air between them. Belinda's face warmed. "I don't have anything to wear to a gala." "Already handled." "What does that mean?" Gray's only response was a small, mysterious smile. The next morning, Belinda opened her closet to find a dress. Not just any dress. The dress. Deep burgundy silk that seemed to glow from within. Delicate gold beading along the neckline that matched her cornrow beads perfectly. A silhouette that was elegant without being revealing. Sophisticated, powerful, beautiful. There was a note pinned to the hanger. "Consider this combat armor. You'll need it tonight. G." Belinda held the dress up to her body and looked in the mirror. For the first time in her life, she felt like someone worth looking at. Gray was waiting at the bottom of the staircase when Belinda descended. He was wearing a tailored black tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's cars. His locks were freshly maintained, pulled back in that elegant ponytail. His gray eyes were focused on his phone. Then he looked up and stopped breathing. Belinda watched several emotions flash across his face in rapid succession. Surprise, appreciation. Something deeper that made her skin tingle. "You clean up well," he finally managed. So do you. She reached the bottom of the stairs. The dress is beautiful, thank you. It's just a dress. It's the nicest thing anyone has ever given me. Their eyes locked. The air between them felt charged, electric. We should go, Gray said abruptly. The car's waiting. He offered his arm. Belinda took it, and together, they stepped into the night. The gala was held at a historic mansion overlooking the bay. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, women dripping in diamonds, men radiating wealth and power. Belinda felt completely out of her depth, but with Gray at her side, his hand resting casually on her lower back, his presence solid and reassuring, she held her head high. Mr. Kingston, a portly man with a handlebar mustache, approached them. Wonderful to see you. And who is this stunning creature? This is Belinda Dawn, Gray said smoothly. A very close friend of the family. Friend, eh? The man winked knowingly. Well, she's certainly an upgrade from your usual companions. Belinda felt Gray stiffen beside her. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing. Just that your, shall we say, frequent companions tend to dress a bit more disposable. You know what I mean. She looks like none compared to all the other girls you bring around. The man chuckled at his own joke. Something dangerous flickered in Gray's eyes. Before he could respond, Belinda stepped forward with her sweetest smile. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name? Herbert Wellington, my dear. Wellington Shipping. Ah, Wellington Shipping. Didn't I read something about your company recently? She had been following new for shipping companies ever since she found shelter at Gray's home. Belinda tapped her chin thoughtfully. Something about a lawsuit? Unsafe working conditions on your vessels? Herbert's face went pale. That was settled out of court. Of course it was. Belinda's smile didn't waver. How fortunate for you that money can make so many problems disappear. Now, if you'll excuse us, Mr. Kingstone and I have other people to greet. You know, non-disposable ones. She turned and walked away, pulling a stunned Gray with her. When they were out of earshot, Gray started laughing. Did you just verbally eviscerate a shipping magnate? He called your dates disposable. Which, by the way, they kind of were. But that's not for him to say. You defended my honor. I defended my ego. He implied I was just another one of your rotating companions, but one that looked like a nun. Gray stopped walking. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. You're not, he said quietly. You're nothing like them. Belinda's heart hammered against her ribs. I know, I arrived in a box, very exclusive. Gray shook his head, but he was smiling. Come on. I want to introduce you to some people who actually deserve to meet you. The rest of the evening was a whirlwind. Gray introduced Belinda to politicians, celebrities, titans of industry. He stayed by her side the entire time, his hand finding excuses to touch her back, her elbow, her hand. And for one perfect night, Belinda forgot about everything else. She forgot about her mother, about Cornelius Webb, about the life she had run away from. All that existed was Gray, his laugh, his smile, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. When the cameras came out for the society pages, Gray pulled her close. Smile, he murmured against her ear. You're about to become famous. The flash went off, and somewhere across the bay, in a shabby apartment near the Baltimore harbor, a television flickered with images of the gala. Vivian Dawn leaned forward, her eyes widening. That's her, she breathed. That's my daughter. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number. Cornelius, I found her. Oh no. Belinda's mom saw her on TV, and she's calling Cornelius. If you're yelling "Run, Belinda" at your screen, drop that in the comments right now. This is about to get messy. Subscribe because the confrontation is coming and it's going to be explosive. 3 days after the gala, Belinda was helping the chef get lunch ready when Desmond appeared in the doorway. Miss Dawn, you have visitors? Something in his tone made Belinda's blood run cold. Who? Desmond's expression was carefully neutral. They claim to be your family. Belinda walked into the mansion's foyer on shaking legs. There they were. Vivian Dawn stood near the fountain, her arms crossed, her face twisted into expression of righteous fury. She was wearing a cheap dress that was trying too hard to look expensive, the same way she had always tried too hard to look like something she wasn't. And beside her, leaning on an expensive cane, was Cornelius Webb. He looked exactly as Belinda remembered. Gray hair, yellow teeth, those hungry, possessive eyes that had haunted her nightmares since the day she ran. "There she is," Vivian said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "My darling daughter. Do you have any idea what you put me through?" Belinda's jaw tightened. "Hello, Mother." "Hello, Mother?" Vivian's composure cracked. "That's all you have to say? You humiliated me. You humiliated Cornelius. You ran away from your own wedding like like someone who didn't want to marry a man old enough to be her grandfather? Watch your mouth." Cornelius stepped forward, his cane tapping against the marble floor. "I offered you everything. A life of luxury, security. All I asked in return was a little companionship." The word made Belinda's skin crawl. "I'd rather die," she said flatly. "Ungrateful child," Vivian shrieked. "Do you know how much money I owe this man? Do you know what he'll do if I can't pay him back?" "That sounds like a you problem, Mother, not a me problem." Vivian's face contorted with rage. She lunged forward, hand raised, and a voice cut through the room like a blade of ice. "Touch her, and I will personally ensure you never use that hand again." Everyone froze. Gray Kingston stood at the top of the staircase, his gray eyes blazing with cold fury. He descended slowly, each step deliberate, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud. "Mr. Kingston," Cornelius said, trying to sound confident and failing miserably. "This is a family matter. It doesn't concern you. Belinda is under my protection. Everything concerning her concerns me." "Protection?" Vivian's eyes darted between Gray and Belinda, calculating. "What exactly is my daughter doing for you that requires such protection?" The implication was clear and disgusting. Belinda stepped forward. "Mama, for once in your life, don't—" "No, let her speak." Gray's voice was eerily calm. "I want to hear exactly what kind of woman would sell her own daughter to a man like this." "Sell?" Vivian sputtered. "I didn't sell anyone. Cornelius and I had an arrangement. An arrangement where he funded your lifestyle for 18 years in exchange for your daughter's hand in marriage." Gray smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've done my research, Mrs. Dawn. I know exactly how much money you've taken from Mr. Webb over the years. I know about the house, the cars, the jewelry you sold when the money ran low. All of it was an advance payment, an investment, with Belinda as the return." Vivian's face went pale. "Here's what's going to happen," Gray continued. "I'm going to pay off every cent you owe Mr. Webb. And in return, both of you are going to walk out of this house and never contact Belinda again." Cornelius's eyes widened. "You'd pay off her debt? That's over $2 million. I'm aware. Why would you do that for some girl you barely know?" Gray's jaw tightened. "That's none of your concern. Do we have a deal?" Cornelius hesitated. Then slowly he nodded. "Fine. $2 million, and I'll consider the matter settled." "No." Vivian's voice was shrill. "Absolutely not. Belinda is coming home with us." Everyone stared at her. "Mama," Belinda said slowly, "he's offering to erase your debt. You're free. Isn't that what you wanted?" "What I wanted?" Vivian laughed bitterly. "What I wanted was for you to do your duty, to sacrifice for this family the way I sacrificed for you." "Sacrifice?" Belinda's voice cracked. "You treated me like a commodity. You promised me to a stranger when I was 6 years old. What sacrifice did you ever make for me? I gave up my life for you." The words exploded from Vivian like a dam bursting. Her face was red, her eyes wild. "My life, my future, everything. Your father left the second he found out I was pregnant. Every man after that, every single one, left because I had a child, Because I had you, the baggage, the burden. Belinda stumbled back like she'd been slapped. Every opportunity I missed was because of you, Vivian continued, years of resentment pouring out. Every happiness denied was because of you. So yes, I made a deal with Cornelius. Yes, I spent his money, and yes, I expected you to pay it back. Because you owe me, Belinda. You owe me for ruining my life. It's the least you could do. Tears streamed down Belinda's face. Mama, and now look at you. Vivian gestured wildly at the mansion, at Gray. Living in luxury, wearing designer clothes, with a young, wealthy man who actually wants you. Why should you be happy? Why should you have what I never could? The truth hung in the air, ugly and raw. All her life, Belinda had wondered why her mother was so cold. Why nothing she did was ever good enough. Why she had been promised to Cornelius like a piece of property. Now she knew. Her mother didn't just resent her. Her mother hated her. The silence stretched for an eternity. Then Gray stepped forward. Get out. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Vivian blinked. Excuse me? Get out of my house. Before I have security remove you in a way you won't enjoy. You can't speak to me like... Belinda. Gray's gray eyes met hers. Do you want her to leave? Belinda looked at her mother, at the woman who had spent 24 years making her feel worthless, unwanted, unloved. Something inside her shifted, hardened, healed. Yes, she whispered, then stronger. Yes, I want her to leave, now. You heard her. Gray nodded to Desmond, who had appeared with 2 security guards. Escort Mrs. Dawn off the premises. Mr. Webb, my lawyers will contact you about the payment. I expect never to see either of you again. Cornelius didn't argue. He shuffled toward the door, eager to escape with his money and his dignity intact. But Vivian wasn't done. You'll regret this, she screamed as the security guards took her arms. Both of you. He'll get bored with you, Belinda. Men always do. You'll end up alone and miserable, just like me. No, Belinda said quietly. I won't, because I'm nothing like you. The doors closed. Her mother was gone, and Belinda shattered. Gray caught her before she hit the ground. The sobs came hard and fast, ripping through her body like earthquakes. 24 years of pain. 24 years of hoping her mother would love her someday. 24 years of wondering what she had done wrong. All of it poured out in Gray's arms. He didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it or offer platitudes. He just held her. He sank to the floor of the foyer, pulled her into his lap, and wrapped his arms around her while she fell apart. I've got you, he murmured against her hair. I've got you. You're safe. You're home. Home. The word broke something open in Belinda's chest, something that had been locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. Hope. After that day, everything changed. Gray stopped keeping his distance. He started joining Belinda for breakfast, asked about her day, listened, really listened when she talked. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, those gray eyes soft in a way she'd never seen before. And he started giving. It began with small things, a new phone to replace the one she'd left behind. I can't accept this, Belinda said, trying to push it back into his hands. It's a phone, not a kidney. Take it. Gray, how am I supposed to reach you if Grandma needs something? He raised an eyebrow. Or would you prefer I send carrier pigeons? She took the phone. Then came a laptop. For what? Belinda asked suspiciously. You mentioned wanting to go back to school. You can't do online courses without a computer. Belinda stared at him. She had mentioned that exactly once, in passing, during a conversation with Grandma. She didn't even know Gray had been listening. You were eavesdropping? I was in the next room. Sound carries. He shrugged like it was nothing. There's a good university nearby. They have an excellent business program. Part-time so you can still keep Grandma company. Gray, university costs money. Money I don't have. I'll pay for it. Absolutely not. Belinda, no. She crossed her arms. I appreciate what you're trying to do. Really, I do. But I'm not going to let you pay my way through life. That's exactly what Cornelius wanted to do. And look how that turned out. Something flickered across Gray's face. Hurt? Understanding? I'm nothing like him, he said quietly. I know you're not. Belinda's voice softened. But I need to do this myself. I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet. Otherwise, I'm just trading one cage for another. A prettier cage, but still a cage. Gray was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Fine, no handouts. A small smile played at his lips. But what about a job? A job? At my company, you'd earn a salary. Use it to pay for school yourself. Belinda considered this. What kind of job? I have a position open in our executive division. Great pay, benefits, corner office. What are the qualifications? I'm the CEO. I decide the qualifications. Gray. She gave him a look. What are the real qualifications? He sighed. MBA preferred. 5 years experience minimum. And I have a high school diploma and 6 months experience hiding in shipping crates. Exactly. Belinda shook her head. I'm not taking a job I didn't earn. People will talk. They'll say I slept my way to the top. They'll say I'm just another gold digger who got lucky. Since when do you care what people say? I don't care what they say about me. I care what I know about myself. She met his eyes directly. Give me an entry-level position. Something I'm actually qualified for. Let me work my way up like everyone else. Gray stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You're turning down a 6-figure salary to work in the mailroom? Do you have a mailroom position open? He ran a hand through his locks, clearly frustrated. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. I'm taking it as one anyway. Despite himself, Gray laughed. Fine, entry level. But you're taking the laptop and the phone, and I'm not hearing another word about it. Deal. Belinda started classes the following month. She worked mornings at Kingston Industries, in the marketing department, not the mailroom, because apparently they didn't actually have a mailroom, and took classes in the afternoons. Her schedule was brutal. Her feet ached constantly. She fell asleep over her textbooks more nights than not. But for the first time in her life, she was building something that belonged entirely to her. Gray pretended not to notice her exhaustion. He failed miserably. You look terrible, he said one morning, sliding a cup of coffee across the breakfast table. Wow, such flattery. I'm swooning. When did you sleep last? Define sleep. Belinda. I had a paper due. She took a long gulp of coffee. I'm fine. You're running yourself into the ground. I'm investing in my future. She raised an eyebrow. Isn't that what all you business types are always talking about? Investment? Long-term gains? Gray's jaw tightened. This isn't a joke. I'm not joking. She set down the coffee cup and met his gaze. For 24 years, other people decided what my life would look like. My mother, Cornelius, everyone except me. Now I finally have a chance to build something on my own terms. And yes, it's hard. Yes, I'm tired. But I'd rather be exhausted and free than comfortable and trapped. Something shifted in Gray's expression. The frustration melted into something softer, something that looked almost like admiration. You're remarkable, he said quietly. Belinda's cheeks warmed. I'm just stubborn. That too. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. But mostly remarkable. Clothes came next. Belinda walked into her room one evening to find her closet full. Not just full, overflowing. Dresses, blouses, pants, shoes in every color, all designer, all clearly expensive. She marched straight to Gray's study and threw open the door. What is this? He didn't look up from his paperwork. You'll have to be more specific. The closet. My closet. The one that now looks like a Nordstrom exploded inside it. Ah, that. He finally met her eyes, completely unrepentant. You needed clothes. I have clothes. You have 3 outfits, which you rotate so predictably I could set my calendar by them. There's nothing wrong with my outfits. The blue blouse has a hole in the sleeve. Belinda's mouth opened. Closed. He wasn't wrong. There was a small tear near the cuff that she'd been meaning to fix. I was going to mend it. Now you don't have to. Gray returned to his paperwork like the conversation was over. You're welcome. I didn't say thank you. You were about to. I was not. Belinda took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Gray, we talked about this. I don't want handouts. It's not a handout. It's a... He waved a hand vaguely. A workplace necessity. A workplace necessity. You represent Kingston Industries now. You can't do that in a blouse with holes. So this is about your company's image? Exactly. And it has nothing to do with you wanting to spoil me? Gray's pen paused mid-signature. Just for a moment. I don't know what you're talking about. Belinda leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. So, if I return everything, you won't be disappointed? Silence. That's what I thought. She pushed off the doorframe. I'm keeping 3 outfits. The rest goes back. 20. 5. 15, and I'll stop trying to upgrade your phone. You're trying to upgrade my phone? No. Belinda laughed despite herself. You're impossible. So I've been told. Gray finally looked up, and there was something warm in his gray eyes. Something that made Belinda's heart skip. Usually by you. But despite her protests about the gifts, Belinda couldn't deny that something wonderful was happening. She reached over and took his hand. Gray looked down at their intertwined fingers like he'd never seen anything so remarkable. What changed? She asked softly. He raised his eyes to hers. The walls were down, all his armor stripped away. She was seeing him, really seeing him, for the first time. You showed up in a box. Belinda laughed weakly. That's really not as romantic as you think it is. I'm not trying to be romantic. His thumb traced circles on her palm, sending shivers up her arm. I'm trying to be honest. Those can be the same thing. Can they? The air between them shifted, charged. You crashed into my life uninvited, Gray continued, his voice low. Wearing a ridiculous wedding dress. Clutching my knees, demanding to scrub my toilets. His lips twitched. You were terrified and defiant and absolutely insane. And I couldn't stop thinking about you. Belinda's heart pounded. Gray. You didn't want my money. You didn't want my status. You didn't even seem particularly impressed by my face, which I'll admit was a new experience. Your face is fine. Just fine? Don't fish for compliments. It's beneath you. Gray laughed, that warm, rich sound she'd grown to crave. See? That's what I mean. You don't perform for me. You don't try to be what you think I want. You just are. Honest. Real. His hand tightened around hers. You made me remember what it felt like to want something real. Belinda's throat tightened. She wanted to respond. Wanted to tell him that she felt the same. That somewhere between the arguments and the laughter and the quiet moments, she had started falling for him too. But the words stuck in her chest. What if she was wrong? What if this was just gratitude, not love? What if she was reading everything incorrectly and she made a fool of herself? I'm not saying I have it all figured out, Gray continued, misreading her silence. I'm not saying I'm suddenly healed or whole or any of that. I still have walls. I still have fears. He took a breath. But for the first time in years, I want to try, because of you. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. The gentleness of it, from this man who had been so cold, so closed off, nearly undid her. Gray, you don't have to say anything. He lowered her hand, but didn't let go. I just needed you to know. But Belinda was done being a coward. What if I want to say something? She asked. Gray went very still. What if I want to tell you that you're the most infuriating, stubborn, emotionally constipated man I've ever met? His expression flickered. That's not exactly. And what if, Belinda continued, I also want to tell you that you're kind beneath all that armor, that you pretend not to care, but you rebuilt your grandmother's entire room so she'd be comfortable, that you gave a strange woman in a wedding dress a home when you had every reason to throw her out? Gray's breath caught. What if I want to tell you that I've never met anyone who made me feel so seen, so challenged, so absolutely crazy? Belinda's voice cracked. What if I want to tell you that somewhere between the arguments and the breakfast conversations and the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching? She took a shaky breath. What if I fell for you too? Silence. Gray stared at her like she'd just handed him the moon. He cleared his throat. You fell for me? Don't let it go to your head. Too late. A smile broke across his face. Brilliant, boyish, absolutely breathtaking. Say it again. No. Please? Absolutely not. Your ego is all ready. He kissed her. Not gently, not tentatively. He pulled her toward him and kissed her like he'd been drowning and she was air. Like he'd been wandering in darkness and she was the sun. Belinda gasped against his lips. And then she was kissing him back. Her hands fisted in his shirt, his fingers tangled in her braids. Scattering gold beads onto the couch. The fire crackled. The world narrowed to nothing but this. His mouth on hers, his heart pounding against her palm, the rightness of it all. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gray pressed his forehead to hers. I've wanted to do that for months, he murmured. Months? Belinda raised an eyebrow. You hated me for the first month. I didn't hate you. I was terrified of you. Same thing? Not even close. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Those gray eyes were soft, open, completely unguarded. You terrified me because I knew, from the moment you climbed out of that crate and started yelling at me, that you were going to change everything. Is that a complaint? It's a thank you. He kissed her again, softer this time, slower, like they had all the time in the world. And maybe they did. 2 months later, Grandma Odessa came home. Gray had spared no expense on her recovery. The best doctors, the best therapists, the best equipment. Her bedroom had been converted into a fully equipped medical suite, complete with round-the-clock nursing staff. But the best medicine, as Grandma herself declared, was seeing Gray and Belinda together. I knew it, she said, watching them bicker affectionately over who would push her wheelchair. The moment I saw her climb out of that box, I knew she was the one. Grandma, please, Gray muttered. What? It's true. A woman who escapes her own wedding in a shipping crate is exactly the kind of woman you need, someone crazy enough to keep up with you. I'm not crazy, Belinda protested. Honey, you're a little crazy. But that's what makes you perfect. Gray slipped his hand into Belinda's and squeezed. She squeezed back. That evening, Gray found Belinda in the garden. She was sitting on the stone bench overlooking the bay, her golden cornrow beads catching the last light of day. She had kicked off her shoes, another pair Gray had bought her despite her protests, and was digging her toes into the cool grass. Penny for your thoughts, Gray said, settling beside her. Just thinking about how different my life is now. Belinda leaned against his shoulder. 5 months ago, I was about to marry a man I hated. I had no money, no education, no hope. And now? Now I'm halfway through my first semester. I have a job I actually earned. I have a crazy old woman who thinks I'm perfect. She smiled. And I have a man who keeps trying to buy me designer clothes even though I've told him 100 times I don't need them. Only 97 times. I've been counting. You're ridiculous. So you keep telling me. Gray turned to face her, taking her hands in his. The dying sunlight turned his gray eyes to molten gold. But you left something out. Did I? You forgot to mention that you also have someone who loves you. Belinda's breath caught. They had said the words before, in the heat of the moment, in whispered confessions late at night. But something about the way Gray said it now, deliberate, certain, like he was making a vow, made her heart stutter. I love you, Belinda Dawn, he continued. I love your fire, your stubbornness. Gray, I love that you're building your own path instead of walking one I made for you. I love that you make my grandmother laugh. His voice cracked slightly. I love that you made me believe love could be something other than a trap. Tears spilled down Belinda's cheeks. I spent years convinced I'd be alone forever, Gray said. And I was fine with that. I'd accepted it. And then you showed up, in a wedding dress, in a shipping crate, completely unhinged. I was not unhinged. And you ruined everything. He smiled. In the best possible way. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Belinda's heart stopped completely. I know it's fast, Gray said. I know you're still in school. I know you want to build your career on your own terms. And I respect that. I love that about you. He opened the box. But I also know I don't want to spend another day without knowing you'll be mine forever. Inside the box was a ring. Simple, elegant. A single diamond set in a gold band that matched her cornrow beads perfectly. Belinda Dawn, will you marry me? For a long moment, Belinda couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at the ring, at Gray, at the future stretching out before her like an endless sky. Then she laughed. You know, she said, the last time someone proposed to me, I ran away and hid in a box. Gray's expression flickered with uncertainty. Is that a... That's a warning. Belinda cupped his face in her hands. If you ever give me a reason to run, I will steal one of your ships and disappear forever. Noted. His smile returned, blinding and beautiful. Is that a yes? Yes. Gray Kingston. She kissed him softly. It's a yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. And somewhere inside the mansion, watching through the window with tears streaming down her weathered face, Grandma Odessa pressed a hand to her heart and whispered, Earl, you would have loved her. Y'all, they're engaged. Gray went from a cold-hearted playboy to a man proposing with tears in his eyes. And Belinda went from a runaway bride to a woman building her own future and finding love. If you're crying right now, type finally in the comments. And stay tuned for the wedding. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss where they get married. The wedding was held on a cruise ship. When Gray had first suggested it, Belinda thought he was joking. A boat? You want me to get married on a boat? Not just any boat. Gray's gray eyes sparkled with rare mischief. The exact cruise liner that carried a certain shipping crate from Baltimore to my doorstep. Belinda's jaw dropped. You're kidding. I never kid about destiny. He pulled her close. You escaped your old life on this ship. It's only right you start your new one here, too. And so, on a warm September evening, with the sun melting into the ocean like liquid gold, Belinda walked down an aisle of white rose petals on the deck of the MS Serenity. Grandma Odessa sat front row, wheelchair decorated with ribbons, tears streaming down her beaming face. Gray stood at the altar in a midnight blue suit, looking at Belinda like she had hung every star in the sky. When the officiant asked if she took this man as her husband, Belinda grinned. I do, but if you ever bore me, I'm hiding in a shipping crate. Laughter rippled through the guests. Gray pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. If I ever bore you, I'll lock myself in the crate with you. They kissed as the ship's horn sounded, loud, triumphant, echoing across the water. And Belinda finally understood. First, running away isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. Belinda didn't stay and suffer to prove she was strong. She escaped. She chose herself. and that choice led her to everything she deserved. Second, the people who are supposed to love you won't always love you right. Belinda's own mother resented her, sold her, tried to trap her in misery. But here's the truth. You don't owe loyalty to people who never valued you. Family isn't just blood. Family is the people who choose you, like Grandma Odessa chose Belinda. And third, broken people can heal. Gray had been betrayed, hurt. He built walls so high he forgot what love felt like. But the right person doesn't climb your walls. They make you want to tear them down yourself. So if you're stuck somewhere you don't belong, run. If the people who raised you don't deserve you, let them go. And if your heart has been shattered, know that it can beat again. Your story isn't over. Your blessing might be one shipping crate away. If this touched your heart, hit subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And drop your favorite moment in the comments. I read every single one and will try to respond to all of them. Until next time.